Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mark Bogosian, the Director of the Quality of Life Grants Program here at the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. And I would like to welcome you to this webinar, the Reeve Foundation Quality of Life Applicant Technical Assistance Webinar. The 2019 First Cycle Quality of Life Program will offer both direct effect and high impact priority grants. All grants must be completed within 12 months of receipt after the receipt of the award funds, and all grants are non-renewable. Grant projects awarded through this 2019 first cycle will start in June of 2019 and will close in May 2020. Exact dates will be determined based on our review process. I wanted to let you all know that these slides, along with the embedded links shown in these slides, will be uploaded onto the Reeve Foundation website. And please note that the Foundation is no longer able to provide individual pre-award assistance either by telephone or by email. However, we welcome you to submit all your questions about the application process to qol@christopherreeve.org. That email address will be visible in an upcoming slide. And all questions are going to be collected, aggregated, and answered in a questions and answers document that will be posted on our website. You can also submit your questions here in the chat box, and I see a few of you have done that already. We won't be answering the questions here on this webinar, but we will be gathering them and aggregating them and putting them on the website with the responses. The deadline for these questions, the emailed questions, is this Friday, February 15th. And I did want to let you all know, too, that letters of intent, LOIs, are no longer required to apply for a quality of life grant. I just wanted to give you a short overview of what to expect from this webinar, and we're going to be looking at an introduction to both the Reeve Foundation and the Quality of Life Grants Program, funding restrictions, eligibility, allowable expenses, and program descriptions and funding type and tier descriptions of both the direct effect and high impact priority grants. We're also going to talk about getting onto the online grants portal, the application process, the awards notification process, and then what are some of the requirements of being a Reeve Foundation grantee. The Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation is paralysis focused, and as such our grant funding must be targeted to projects that will serve individuals living with paralysis, their families, and caregivers. The Reeve Foundation uses a functional definition of paralysis, which is the difficulty and or inability to use arms and or legs due to neurological conditions, which include but not limited to spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, stroke, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, ALS, post-polio syndrome, etc. The Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation Quality of Life Program was created by the late Dana Reeve and has since its inception in 1997, it's awarded over $24 million to over 3,000 projects across the United States. Grants have funded nonprofits, tribal entities, and municipalities for a wide array of projects, programs, and services. And since 2014, the Quality of Life Grants Program has been federally funded through a cooperative agreement with the United States Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Community Living. Before beginning your application, we recommend that you read the application and program guidelines, which provide information about the QOL Grants Program, program and funding tier descriptions, new eligibility requirements, funding restrictions, and allowable expenses, as well as it will provide the application questions. The guidelines are available through this link here in these slides, and they're also available on our website. We also ask that you visit the Reeve Foundation for an overview of the QOL grants program and the QOL grant application process. The links on these slides also will bring you to those web pages. We ask that you please read all of the information contained in these documents and on the web pages to familiarize yourself with the application process and to better prepare the required information requested in the applications. Also available on our website is a People First language guide, and that really provides guidelines for discussing people with disabilities. And we also have a guide to establishing evaluation indicators, as both applications require you to describe how you're going to evaluate your program. In accordance with our federal cooperative agreement, the Reeve Foundation is prohibited from funding the following: grants awarded directly to individuals, nonprofit companies, organizations and projects that are based outside of the United States, projects that utilize contractors or vendors that are also outside of the United States, research, rehabilitative therapy. However, the thing to note there is that programs that assist people living with paralysis to participate in exercise opportunities are allowable. Also under our funding restrictions is equipment, but it is, and this is important to really keep in mind, it is allowable for us to fund loan closets. Otherwise, equipment provided to individuals to keep is considered a gift. Equipment can also be funded if it provides access and or promotes independence. And we've provided a few examples on this slide, but I'd like to go through some of these, keeping in mind that these are examples of types of pieces of equipment that we could fund. Adaptive strollers that are used as part of a program, and again, they are part of a program, not being given out to individuals, and they would remain on site. Another example of a piece of equipment providing access would be a transfer chair at a community pool, or an examination table in a rural area where no such equipment is available in that region. All of those examples would be under the umbrella of providing access. For a piece of equipment to fall under the area of promoting independence, the examples that we give are, one would be a scale. Just, knowing your weight promotes independence. It allows people to remain healthy, as being overweight can lead to a number of chronic health conditions. Beach wheelchairs and adaptive bikes at a community park, or sports wheelchairs for a community sports team, those would also be considered as promoting independence. But you could certainly say that they both fit under the area of providing access to. Other funding restrictions are the development of prototypes for invention of equipment or other research and developmental activities which involve intellectual property rights. Construction of buildings and or major construction are also restricted. However, it's important to note that funds may support simple accessibility modifications to existing structures. Those structures certainly could be buildings, a bathroom, playgrounds, trails, etc. As we mentioned earlier, projects that serve less than 3 individuals with paralysis, their families or caregivers are also under these restrictions. Fundraising events for paid fundraiser positions, lobbying and or efforts to influence legislation, projects that cannot be completed within 12 months of receipt of the grant award, projects that have already been completed. So this must be not a project that has already been completed that funds would be going to be used towards. Food is another area, and food really encompasses all of these pieces that are written out here: meals, per diem, board, lunch, beverages, alcohol, and water is also actually a part of what is with our funding restrictions based on our cooperative agreement. And lastly, medical services. The quality of life grant applications, they are accepted from nonprofit organizations, municipalities, and tribal entities. Prior grantees must wait 2 years after the most recent grant award to reapply and are given consideration only for new and innovative projects. Funding for continuation of projects already funded through either the direct effect and or high impact priority tiers will not be considered. Multiple submissions from one organization will also not be considered. Organizations may apply for only one grant in a grant cycle. However, more than one chapter of a national organization may apply in the same grant cycle. Special consideration will be given to proposals that serve current military and or veterans and their families, as well as projects that target individuals with paralysis in underserved groups of the population. These populations include, and however are not limited to, but include persons at risk of incarceration, current or released prisoners, ethnic minorities, homeless populations, indigenous or tribal communities, LGBTQ populations, populations with limited English proficiency, rural residents, migrant workers, low-income and or poverty populations, and newly injured people with paralysis and their caregivers. Quality of life funds can support a range of programmatic expenses for a wide range of programs and services, and we'll cover those in the direct effect and high impact priority descriptions, and we'll also go over the types of projects funded in the upcoming slides. But grant funds can support programmatic personnel, consultants, and contracted workers, entry fees, transportation costs, facility rentals, travel reimbursement, marketing, equipment, but again, please refer to those funding restrictions, and supplies. It's also important to note that program expenses directly related to serving individuals with paralysis and their families are considered more favorable than operational expenses and or large capital projects. The Direct Effect Quality of Life Grant, which is what we are calling Tier 1, is open-focused, and through this cycle, we're going to be awarding at least 22 grants of up to $25,000. The grants will fund specific budget items that will clearly impact individuals living with paralysis, their families, and caregivers. And again, the projects must be completed within 12 months. These grants, the Tier 1 Direct Effect, they will have short to medium range impact. A long range impact and sustainability are not expected for projects funded at this level. The High Impact Priority Quality of Life Grants, they fund projects in the following high priority areas. Tier 2 consists of transportation, respite and caregiving, and disaster response, and those are going to be grants of up to $30,000. Tier 3 is nursing home transition. Those are grants up to $40,000, and Tier 4 are employment grants, and those will be grants up to $50,000. And I'm going to describe those tiers in more depth in the upcoming slides. The direct effect quality of life grants fund the same wide range of projects as those funded in the prior quality of life grants program, and those include all of these that are listed here, but I do want to go through those there. It covers projects such as accessibility modifications, adaptive sports, accessible playgrounds, ball fields, trails, tree houses and beaches, assistive technology, advocacy, art, camp, caregiving, consumer education, employment, facility accessibility modifications, fitness and wellness, healthcare, media development, medical professional education, peer mentoring support, service animal programs, therapeutic horseback riding, transportation, and transition from institution to home. Examples of types of projects that are funded include sports wheelchairs for a wheelchair basketball team, an adapted glider in a community playground, a kayak for a rowing program, accessible gym equipment, a hydraulic lift at a pool, electronic door openers at a community center, and I actually see that somebody had asked about that in the questions, and yes, electronic door openers at a community center, etc., are allowable funded projects. A wheelchair accessible picnic table at a county fairground, camp programs, subsidized lessons for therapeutic riding, transportation costs for an inclusive after-school program, and support groups. And I also urge you to go to our website for a full listing of the grants made through each tier and through each grant program. So I'd like to go through the high-impact priority grants. And as I said, Tier 2 is made up of transportation, respite caregiving, and disaster response. The transportation grants are going to support nonprofit organizations and programs that provide accessible transportation to people living with paralysis to access services in their communities. In addition, funds may also support adaptive driving education programs to enable people with paralysis to learn how to drive and increase their independence and transportation options. Respite caregiving, this area recognizes family caregivers and the vital role that they play in caring for those with paralysis. Funds support nonprofits that offer exemplary and innovative respite care services that are evidence-based, appear promising, or are trying new service models. And as noted in the grant application and program guidelines, forms of respite supported through this grant include emergency respite, home-based services, sitter companion services, consumer-directed respite, out-of-home respite, family care homes or host family, respite center-based, adult day health care centers, and parent-family cooperatives. Grant funds, however, cannot be used to support respite in the following environments: corporate foster home settings for children and teens, residential facilities, hospitality model, hospital-based, hospice, and camps. And again, those are all noted in the grant application and program guidelines. Finally, for the Tier 2 grants program here, we have disaster response. And these grants support nonprofit organizations and programs that address the emergency preparedness needs of people with paralysis in a natural disaster environment. Tier 3 of the high impact priority are the nursing home transition grants, and those funds support centers for independent living, and other organizations that provide transition services across the country to transition people with paralysis living in nursing homes back into their homes or a community-based setting of their choice. Tier 4 is employment, and these grant funds support programs that provide job development services to people living with paralysis, and this includes education, adaptive technology, and job coaching, all with the goal of finding gainful employment. Now, a lot of times people will ask us, what is a successful Reeve Foundation grant? And, we see a successful grant as one that directly impacts the life of people with paralysis. Impact can be demonstrated through the numbers of people served and or other quantitative measures, along with stories and examples of quality of life improvement. We encourage nonprofit organizations with programs promoting expansion, innovation, best practices, promising practices, and or evidence-based practices to apply. The Quality of Life Grants applications are completed online through this link, which the Reeve Foundation Online Grants Portal. And you can also copy and paste the URL that is underneath that into your web browser. Both of these are also accessible on our website and in the grant application and program guidelines. We ask that you please add QOL@ChristopherReeve.org and administrator@grantinterface.com to your acceptable email lists. This will avoid having communication from us being blocked by spam or not getting to you. And you will, once you do submit your application, you will be receiving automated email responses from the administrator@grantinterface.com. So it's really important to have both of these emails on your acceptable lists. And also, this is the QOL@ChristopherReeve.org. That is the address to send all of your questions to. After clicking on the link to access the Reeve Foundation Grants portal, you're going to be brought to the log-on page. Now, and if this is your first time applying for a grant, you're going to need to create a new account. What you're going to do is click on the Create New Account button, and you will be asked to input contact information about yourself and information about your organization. If you need any assistance, there is a link to a registration tutorial video. You can see that here highlighted on this page. And if you've applied in the past, all you need to do is enter your email address and the password that you've previously created. If you've forgotten your password, just click on Forgot Password, click on that link, and an email will be sent to you with your password. Once you've created a new account or have logged on to the portal, you'll be brought to the Apply page. Click on the Apply button for the type of grant that you're applying for. And please note, again, the deadline for submission is Tuesday, March 19th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And unfortunately, the system is set up as such that 1 second after 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, the system will not allow you to submit. So please be sure to have your application submission in well before the deadline. But just know, if you're cutting it close, 11:59 is the cutoff, and unfortunately after that it will not allow you to submit your application. Once you click on the Apply button for the specific grant program that you're applying for, you're going to be brought directly to the application. To print out the application questions, just click on the question list, and that's the button that you see up in the upper right-hand corner. A Word document will be downloaded, and these applications are also available in the grant application and program guidelines, just to give you an idea of the types of questions being asked. The list of application questions includes paragraph count limits for text fields, which I'll show you on the next slide. But some applicants find it helpful to create a draft application in Word, which they can then use to cut and paste their answers into the text field into the online application. The application is broken down into the following sections. Eligibility, which also gives you some eligibility questions that you answer yes or no to, and answering yes to any of these will mean that you're not, that these grant programs you're not eligible to apply. Those are also covered under the eligibility criteria. That link is provided in these slides and also on our website. The other areas of the application are the proposal summary, organizational information, proposal description, budget information, and supporting documentation. The last section underneath the first cycle 2019 Direct Effect Program application just gives you some of the dates to keep in mind, and I'll go over those dates at the end of this webinar. We ask that you please respond to all of the questions, noting that fields with an asterisk are required, and you may save your application at any time and come back to it. You see down at the bottom there's the Save Application button, and again, just anytime, save it, come back to it. You can continue to work back and forth like that. And once you've completed your application, you just need to hit the Submit Application button, and that is the blue button on the bottom right hand of the form. So the following is an example of the types of questions you're going to be asked to answer. As I mentioned, note that you're given character limits here, and in this case, 3,000 characters is about 1 page of a Word document. So again, up in the instructions, it'll say 4 paragraphs maximum. That we kind of figure to be about 1 word, 1 page of a Word document. For those of you that have applied in the past, I just wanted you to be aware that we have revised the project budget line template. What you need to do is really just type in the line budget item, the total cost of the line item, and the requested amount. Subtotal and total costs will formulate automatically, and so you don't need to do that. You just need to enter your itemized budget line and, again, the total cost and the requested amount. Everything will add up for you. And please note the following budget areas. There's personnel costs, equipment, consultants, contractors, supplies, travel, and other costs. All of the subtotals for each budget area will formulate down into the bottom section of the template. So those funds will request, the total funds requested, those will mirror those above in the line budget item. We're also asking you to please include other sources of funding and note if the funding is committed or pending. We've also included a budget narrative requirement. The budget narrative must include a description and justification of each budget category and line item presented in your proposed budget. All expenses should clearly relate to the project narrative. So all you'll need to just fill this out separately as a Word document, and it will then be uploaded onto the online grants portal. Once you respond to the questions and upload the required documents, just simply hit the Submit Application button. Again, that's the blue button that will be at the bottom of that of the application form. Once you do that, a submission confirmation page will appear, and you will also be sent an email indicating that your application has been received, and that will come from the grant at interface email that we provided earlier. Some dates to keep in mind are this Friday, as I mentioned, is the deadline to submit technical assistance questions, and those will all be gathered and be posted to our website. And please, again, use the QOL at christopherreeve.org. The other dates to keep in mind are the application deadline submission, which is March 19th, and applicants will be notified by mid to late May. Projects will start in June, and they will close in May 2020. Again, those dates will be determined based on our review process and the number of applications received, etc. All applicants will be notified by email if their application has been approved or declined. If your project has been awarded, you're going to be asked to indicate your acceptance of the grant. And once that has been received, a grant agreement will be issued, and the grant award agreement must be countersigned by one of the heads, executive director at your organization. Grant checks will then be issued once we receive the countersigned award agreement. There are some mandatory requirements that must be met to be in compliance with the Quality of Life Grants Program. Grant recipients must submit 2 progress reports to the Reeve Foundation. One is a 6-month interim report, and that's going to let us know that the project is proceeding as planned or perhaps not. And if not, what we'll have a chance to do at that point is then reach out to you and discuss ways that we may be able to help you get it back on track. And a final report is due 1 month after the close of the grant period, and that will go into more detail about the project's progress, the challenges that you were faced with, how you overcame those challenges, the project's impact, and a full expenditure of the grant. It's important to note that failure to meet those report requirements may result in your organization being asked to return the grant funds. And if those requirements are not met, you will also be placed on a list for noncompliance, and your organization will not be considered for future funding. We, as part of our cooperative agreement, report back on your progress to ACL, so we need to be able to have information and outcomes to share with them. From time to time, we do site visits, which are really, it's a wonderful opportunity for us, whether it be the staff or our board of directors or others, to learn more about your program and either assess your progress or help you with any challenges that you're facing. And we also will do some site visits where we will participate in press-related activities. And if, for those of you, if you have been a past grantee and have also received site visits, you'll certainly, hopefully, be able to say that yes, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to get to know each other better and to share more about your really important work. And as part of the final report at the conclusion of the grant period, grantees are required to complete a short evaluation survey. This is conducted by Vanderbilt University, and it really gives you the opportunity to be candid and to offer your feedback about the overall experience that you had being part of the Reeve Foundation Quality of Life Grants cohort. In adherence with our federal cooperative agreement, we are unable to comment on denied applications or provide programmatic direction to organizations applying for quality of life grants. By doing so, it gives the appearance of providing unfair advantage over other applicants, and so that is something that we are not able to do, which is why we are able, though, to offer these webinars and gather questions that you do submit that we would be providing online so that everyone can see it that way. Again, it's a way to keep in adherence with our federal cooperative agreement, but we do thank you for your understanding that at the end of the whole process, unfortunately, we're not able to respond as to what could have been done or how to strengthen your program. So we thank you in advance. And that is really where what we have in terms of just direction. Again, everything is noted on our grants application and program guidelines. We have all of the other information available on our website. We ask you to please add any questions either here to this chat box before we close out in a few moments or so. And again, please send your questions to the qol@christopherreeve.org. And I do see that there are a number of questions, and we will respond to all of those. We will aggregate them, and we will then post those online as quickly as possible. So thank you so much for your interest and for joining me this afternoon, and we certainly look forward to reading your submissions and also any questions that you have. Thank you so much, and have a really wonderful rest of the day, and we really look forward to reading your submissions. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's call. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.